Part 2. "One moment," said Holmes eagerly. "This is a very interesting story. I want to be sure of the facts. When did your uncle receive the letter? The 5 orange pips." "The letter arrived on the 10th of March, 1883, Mr. Openshaw answered. "And when did he die?" Holmes asked him. "He died 7 weeks later, on the 2nd of May," Mr. Openshaw replied. "I see," Holmes said quietly. "Now please go on with the story. Tell us what happened next." "My father examined the property very carefully," Mr. Openshaw said. "He searched the room and the attic. The box was there." A label on the inside of the box had the letters KKK written on it. There was a note on the label which said, "Letters, papers received." The box was empty, but my father found some other papers in the attic. These were records of my uncle's military career. Other papers came from the period after the Civil War. This showed that my uncle did not like the new political situation in America. He did not like the new freedom which the black people had. He did not like the new politicians from the North who came to Florida. My father came to live in the House of the Bosham at the beginning of 1884. Everything went well for about a year. Then, at one moment at breakfast, he suddenly gave a cry of surprise. I looked it up, and he was sitting with an envelope in one hand. In his other hand was holding 5 orange pips. Of course, he knew the story of the 5 orange pips, but he always laughed at it. Now he looked worried. "What does this mean, John?" he asked me. His voice sounded scared. "It's KKK," I replied. He looked inside the envelope. "You're right," he said. "But what about this?" I asked. "What does this mean?" He showed me the envelope. Above the letters KKK, there was some writing. "With the papers on the sundial in garden," I read. "What papers? I don't understand any of this." "The papers must be the ones from the attic," I told him. "Uncle Elias destroyed them all before he died." My father was worried, but he was determined to fight his fear. "This is all nonsense," he decided. "Where does this letter come from?" I looked at the postmark on the outside of the envelope. "Dundee," I told him. The letter was posted in Dundee. We were silent for a moment. "I think you should tell the police," I warned my father. "They laughed at me," he said quickly. "This is just a foolish joke, John. We'll say no more about it." I tried to persuade my father to do something about the letter and the 5 orange pips. It was no good. He refused to do anything. About 3 days later, he went to stay with an old friend of his, Major Freebody. I was glad my father was away from the house. I thought he was out of danger, but I was wrong. Major sent me a telegram 2 days after my father's arrival. Something terrible had happened. My father had fallen over the edge of the chalk pit while I was out walking one evening. He died a few days later. I investigated the accident very carefully, Mr. Holmes. There was no evidence of murder. The coroner decided that my father had died as a result of an accident. "Then is the story of my family," Mr. Openshaw said. "That is how I became the owner of my uncle's house about 3 years ago. I felt that they very happily, Mr. Holmes. Mr. Openshaw stopped talking for a moment. He put his hand in his pocket and tore out an envelope. Until yesterday morning, it is, he said slowly. It emptied the contents of the envelope onto the table in front of him. 5 orange pips wrung out of it. The envelope was posted in London, Mr. Openshaw told us. There was the same message that my father received. KKK. Put the papers on the sundial. What have you done about it? Holmes wanted to know. Nothing, the young man replied. Nothing? Holmes repeated in surprise. What could I do? Mr. Openshaw asked. I feel desperate, like an animal in a trap. You must act, Holmes announced. You must save yourself. I went to the police, Mr. Openshaw said. It was no good. They listened to my story, but didn't believe me. There's a set of policemen to the house, he added. Why did you come to me? Holmes wanted to know. And why did you come sooner? I only spoke to Major Prendergast today, the young man said. Holmes began to speak weakly. You received the letter yesterday, he said. Do you have any evidence to show me? Only this, Mr. Openshaw told him. He put a piece of blue paper on the table. I found this piece of paper in my uncle's room after you burned the papers from the box, he explained. It was on the floor. It seems to be a page from a diary. Almost as I looked at the piece of paper. It's dated March 1869. And Venice is written 4th. Hudson came. Same old platform. 7. Sent the pips to Macaulay, Panama, and John Swain of St. Augustine. 9. Macaulay cleared. 10. John Swain cleared. 12. Visited Paramore. All well. Holmes studied the piece of paper for a few minutes, and he turned to Mr. Openshaw. You must go at once, he ordered him. Put this piece of paper into the box from the room in the attic. Then put the box on the sundial in the garden. You must also write a note. Explain that your uncle burned all the other papers. You can do nothing else at the moment. Do you understand? Yes, I do, Mr. Openshaw said. I'll do what you advised, Mr. Holmes. Go home straight away, Holmes told him, and be very careful. You are in great danger. I'm carrying a revolver, Mr. Openshaw replied. Good, Holmes replied. I will begin working on the case tomorrow. You'll come to the house in Rochambeau? Mr. Openshaw asked him. No, Holmes said. The secret of the case is here in London. I shall stay here to solve the mystery.